29 minutes before the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Today was the day when, coming up in about 15, 20 minutes time. It's a pleasure to welcome back a national champion with the Ohio State Buckeyes on their 2014 team. He now works for the Big Ten Network. He's Joshua Perry. You can follow him on Twitter at RIP_JEP. Joshua, it's been a little while. David and Mark, first things first, thanks for your time, and how are you and your family faring during all this?
It's a hard pill to swallow for sure. And we're just kind of sitting back, evaluating and kind of devising a plan from here. It's tough, and it was unique leading up to it because you have so many different voices with a lot of opinions about the coronavirus in general and the efficacy of playing college football. But you got people's lives in the balance, and we'll be fine over here. And I'm worried about some of my colleagues in the industry, but I'm also thinking about the young men right now who work really hard to try to get out there and compete for themselves, compete for their families, compete for their schools. So it's a really tough situation all around. And we're going to have to come up with a lot of answers here because a lot of people are asking them.
Joshua, how surprised were you? It seemed that the decision was going to be inevitable, but after it seemed like the trial balloon. I mean, Dan Patrick kind of broke this, and all of a sudden people freaked out. It seemed that college presidents were taking phone calls maybe they never had to take in the last 24 hours. How surprised were you that they didn't kick the can down the road and try to delay it for a few weeks as opposed to making the decision to cancel it yesterday?
Well, I feel like it would have been disingenuous to just delay it. I mean, the reality of the situation is all the news, and it seems like the information that the Big Ten had valued was leaning toward postponing or canceling the season. So it just, to me, it wouldn't have made sense. It would have been more of a performance than it would have been a legitimate opportunity to try to play football. And I think that's what we kind of have to get out here. We saw a lot of coaches and ADs talking about finding whatever the best option is and exhausting all options for their guys to play this fall. And, as soon as the news comes down, a lot of them are saying, well, we don't have a lot of options. We'll just play in the spring. That seems like performance. I honestly feel like the conferences that are holding out right now, with the information that exists in the world and two of the Power 5 conferences pulling out, it'd be really hard to make a case to play at this point. So it seems a little bit like performance. And their tone says the same thing because they're telling us right now that they still don't know if they'll be able to play football in a month or so. So it's a really weird position that we're in. Reality is, if you feel like you have that information and the signs are pointing to not playing, then it would be disingenuous to have guys still in training camp working hard knowing that you're going to pull the plug anyway.
Joshua, and this is a hypothetical, so I don't know how this question will be received, but try to, if you could, to put yourself back in time 6 years. And you were getting ready for the 2014 season. You knew you had a good team, and you're ready to play. And then this were to happen. Would your gut instinct be to take it on the chin and just plow through and stay there and, this is the hand we're dealt? Or would your gut reaction have been, yeah, I got to go play? I got, and if Oklahoma or wherever, if they're looking to play, I'm out of here. I got to play.
That's a really good question. I feel like so much of the response up to this point has been an overreaction. So if you're a player and your first instinct is to jump ship and try to transfer elsewhere, I would say let's wait a month and a half to see if any of these other conferences are actually going to play games before we do such a thing. Because you could end up jumping ship to a team that's not actually going to be playing games this fall, and now you're in the same position just with a different team. But I was a Central Ohio kid. I grew up being a Buckeye through and through, so it wasn't even in my DNA to want to play anywhere else. I would have definitely stuck it out and taken my lumps and really used it as an opportunity to build skill and really try to expand my game and do all the little things in the fall that I wouldn't typically be able to do. But I don't blame anybody for wanting to go somewhere else where they feel like they have an opportunity to play the game that they love, to put on tape their athletic ability so the next level can evaluate them. There are so many different options to go here, and I don't think there's a wrong answer for any of these athletes that are involved.
Ohio State, of all the Big Ten teams, obviously is a national powerhouse and a football factory right now. If somehow, some way, spring football happens, and that's what the Big Ten is trying to pull off, whether or not that happens, we don't know. But assuming that it does for this question, how many Buckeyes do you think sit out because they're going to want to get drafted? And I know it applies for other Big Ten schools, but certainly in Columbus, the majority of the NFL draft picks in rounds 1, 2, and 3 of Big Ten guys come from Columbus. If you were in that position, would you play in the spring or would you be getting ready for the NFL?
Well, I mean, if I was a senior, I would be getting ready for the NFL 100%. If I was a draft-eligible junior who had a really good year on tape in 2019, I would be getting ready for the draft as well. And I think that's what you'll see out of a lot of guys in Columbus. And it's a sad situation because, especially for senior players who stuck it out and were there for that last year, you really want them to go out with the typical experience. But the prospect of playing in the NFL and being able to go out there and make money finally for the first time playing the game that you love, it doesn't make sense to risk that in a spring season. And personally, I think spring is really hard to pull off, but even if they can pull it off, like how stupid would it look for your team to walk around wearing 2021 spring football champion t-shirts? Like you feel like a spring season in the grand scheme of things doesn't even matter. So just from that regard, I would say for guys who are ready to go to the league, go ahead and do it. It's just, that seems like a really, really wonky situation to me.
It's funny the way you phrased it, because you could say, hey, Big Ten champs, Pac-12 champs, or spring football champs. That's funny the way you phrased it. Joshua Perry from the Big Ten Network. Follow him on Twitter at RIP_JEP. Joshua, are you surprised that they didn't try? That on August 11th that they pulled the plug, that they didn't wait a couple weeks, that they didn't try and then just say, wait till the kids get back on campus. The COVID cases go through the roof and they go, well, we tried, but we just can't pull this off. Are you surprised that they came to the conclusion that they came to, anticipating they can't play without actually proving they can't play?
Part of me says yes, just because of the very optimistic schedule that was put out. We're going to start early, but if we can't, we've essentially got 6 weeks of flexibility built into these schedules, so we can play a complete season and finish with the conference championship. Like, all that got me excited, and I felt like it was a really good plan. It was a very intelligent plan, and it gave you hope that a season would be played. But the other part of me says that there's really no surprise, just given kind of the tone that Conference Commissioner Kevin Warren has had throughout this pandemic and leading up to these moments. And then when you really evaluate the people that are making decisions on this, which is university presidents, it's even less surprising. A lot of those people have medical backgrounds, so it's not just the advice of the medical advisory boards and the doctors that the Big Ten are listening to. It's the actual university presidents who have been on the front lines in their past who are having to take this information in and evaluate it. And so I feel like, just from a medical standpoint, anybody with that type of background is going to be more cautious in this type of situation. So it all kind of came together to be one of those situations where it hurts your damn feelings because you want to watch football so much. But at the end of the day, it's not like the biggest surprise ever.
Joshua, if somehow, some way, the other 3 Power 5 conferences play and get through a fall season, can Kevin Warren survive as the Big Ten commissioner?
It'd be tough. Honestly, I don't think the Big Ten survives if the other 3 conferences play. Ohio State will be around just because they have a track record of putting guys into the NFL and competing for national titles. And that won't change through the pandemic in a season of not playing. But everybody else is they're not going to be able to recruit anybody. Because well, first off, you're not a competitor, and second off, you're not a competitor in a conference that doesn't value football. And that's what all the people from the South are going to say when they're trying to recruit players. So I think just from that standpoint, it's going to hurt the product if you have football being played this fall. But I think there's a very strong chance that he's going to be kind of the guy who was leading the way on all of this as we look back in history, because I'm just not sure how college football gets played at this point.
All right, I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You feel that if the other 3 are able to pull a fall season off, that the Big Ten as we know it is essentially not going to exist anymore. I mean, are you saying that it will no longer be the Big Ten, or are you saying that basically its image, its powerful place in the sport is going to be just severely diminished?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Big Ten as a conference will exist, but it's not going to be the prestigious conference that we know it to be with the biggest TV deal out of all the Power Five conferences. Like, I just can't see a situation where that happens, because all the talent is going to be extracted from the conference.
He's Joshua Perry, former Ohio State linebacker, now part of the Big Ten Network. You can follow him on Twitter at RIP_JEP. What do you think Nebraska's going to do?
This has been interesting to watch it play out, because, we had all the coaches and the ADs fighting, and then everybody puts out these statements. We're disappointed, but we understand, or we're disappointed, but they made the tough right decision, except for Nebraska, where they're like, we're pissed off and we're going to make sure our guys have some opportunity. And they're exploring. Kevin Warren was very direct, though, last night. I believe it was with Yahoo Sports, where he said they can go ahead and do whatever they want, but that $50 million check, that's done. Their opportunity to earn that is gone. And I believe he's pointing to in the future when things get that right. So I'd be curious to see if Nebraska would put that on the line just to play some games this year that you have a feeling that they don't mean as much just because two of the Power Fives aren't playing. But Nebraska is a school that's tradition rich, and they obviously love football, and those guys want to compete. Scott Frost has made it very clear that he wants to compete. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out. I think it'll be a tough play to call, but they're trying to call it right now.
Think Kevin Warren would have been that adamant if Ohio State would have been the one saying we're going to play football this year?
I think those conversations happen behind closed doors, which is the way that it should have. But that would have, if Ohio State would have made a concerted effort to go elsewhere, that would have been a death sentence for Kevin Warren's career, just because you can't have your biggest brand going to playing for another conference for one season.
Joshua, all the best to you and your family. Safe travels, and hopefully we can talk again.
Definitely. Appreciate being on.
Joshua Perry with the Big Ten Network. Follow him on Twitter, RIP_JEP. Joshua Perry joining us once again here on Miller and